Hey everyone, Graham here from TheRecordingRevolution.com, and today I want to show you a little tip on how to take your drum tracks and open up the sound for a more polished sort of studio sound. Now this can apply to any kind of drum tracks, whether you've got multi-track drums that you recorded or a client recorded, or if you're using a stereo loop, or if you're using the stereo outs from a drum virtual instrument. This is a simple technique that can work on any of the scenarios because you're only working on the stereo track level, okay? So in my scenario, I've got a kick, snare, and overhead tracks, really 4 tracks because the overheads are stereo. But I've got them bussed to a drum group, which is a stereo track. So I'm just processing, I'm going to process just on the drum sound as a stereo track. So it's just like if they were a loop or a virtual instrument or whatever. So you can do this at home also in any scenario. And what I've got is a simple channel strip. I'm going to bypass it for now. And what I want you to do is take a listen to the drums unprocessed, and then I'm going to kick on the channel strip, and what you're going to hear is a slight tightening up of the low end around the kick drum, the mid-range cleaning up a little bit, and then the top end, hi-hat mostly, opening up a smidge, and a little bit more punch to the drums, okay? It is subtle, so if you're listening on just laptop speakers or on your iPhone or something, you're not going to notice it. But on headphones and studio monitors, you're going to tell a difference. So take a listen. I'll cut it in and out so you can see what the differences are, and then we'll just show you real quick how this is set up, and you can do this with any plugin in any DAW. Right? So you hear how when we flip on the channel strip, the loose kick drums kind of ringing and just shaky a little bit. It gets real tight. The hi-hat gets a little crisper. The snare gets a little punchier. Listen to it one more time. Here's with it off, and then I'll flip it on again. It's awesome. It's subtle, but it does the right thing. Now, this is what's so cool about this process. You can do this with any channel strip plugin, and if you don't have a channel strip plugin, you can use any EQ and compressor in tandem. So you could just do the same thing, but with 2 plugins instead of 1. What I'm going to be doing is 3 EQ moves and 1 compression move. The first EQ move is a high-pass filter. And so up here at the top, I've rolled off everything below 20 hertz on the whole drum kit. Okay, now 20 hertz is pretty low, and I doubt we can even hear it, or maybe some of us can't hear it, and some of our speakers and headphones don't even really represent 20 hertz. That's why you've got subwoofers and things like that. So this may not even be that audible, but I really feel like in my head I hear a difference when I roll off the low stuff. It does something to tighten up a kick drum track for whatever reason. So if there is low information down there, maybe the kick drum's air is just really loose, or maybe there's something flowing out of the air conditioning unit in the room, this will roll that out and reduce that noise. And whether we could hear that noise or not, I feel like the result of rolling that off is that your other low stuff above 20 hertz, stuff like 50 hertz, 60 hertz, 70, where the kick drum really is, that stuff tightens up. So just roll off a little bit of low end up to 20 hertz, sometimes up to 30 hertz, and you're not going to get rid of any of that nice kick drum sound in most genres. You're actually going to tighten up and enhance what you have there. It's kind of backwards. So remove the low stuff. That's the first EQ move. I rolled that up to 20 hertz on this track in particular. And again, remember, this is on all the drums, not just the kick drum. So that's the high pass. Roll all the way down at the bottom here. You'll notice on the low end, I have done nothing. There's no boost on the bottom end on the kick drum, but it sounds like the kick drum got bigger and tighter and fatter. That starts with the high pass filter up top. The second EQ move is actually a low mid cut. Okay, so I've taken out around 500 hertz, about 6 dB, 6.3. That's a pretty hefty cut with a tight Q, so it's not a real deep gash, but it's a somewhat narrow gash around 500 hertz, because 500 hertz sounds like this. Pretty much nastiness. So I've taken a lot of that out of all the drums in particular, and that has tightened up the bottom end a lot. That cut around 500 hertz and the high pass around 20 hertz both actually let the kick drum that already exists start to sound better. I haven't pushed or boosted anything, but now that kick drum sounds tight and round and deep. When in actuality, if I left some of those other frequencies in, it would have sounded muffled and just rattly and loose. So that's the other technique. That's the second move, is to roll out some of that low mid. Anywhere between 400 and 500 hertz is generally the culprit I find on drum tracks. That one move alone will make your drums sound better. And then the last EQ move I did was a slight shelf, which is a boost at the frequency and everything above it, a shelf at 8K, right? So 8,000 hertz. And this is about 1.5 dB. Really light shelf here. And what this does is it just opens up the top end, which will be, in this case, the hi-hat, and then the ride when he goes to the chorus, and then any kind of crash cymbal. So the cymbals and also a little bit of air on the snare drum tend to open up when you do this. You don't need much here on most cases. Just a dB and a half actually can be the difference between okay drums and nice open drums. So those three EQ moves, right? The 20 hertz roll off, the 500 hertz cut, which is the biggest move of the three, and a slight dB and a half shelf up top around 8K. That really changed the tone of the drums, okay? So let me bypass the EQ and we'll leave everything else on. Right? You can even hear the hi-hat if you visualize it like going not top to bottom. It almost sounds like the hi-hat is like around your eye level, and when you kick in the EQ, it goes above the top of your head. It almost moves up the spectrum. So anyway, that EQ stuff is very subtle. I know it's not changing it drastically, but those three moves open up the drums. And then on the right side here on my channel strip, I'm doing some light compression. I've got the threshold down as low as it'll go on the SSL, which is -20, but that's irrelevant to you. You just kick in the threshold to a point where it's actually affecting the drums. And I've got the ratio at 1.6. These two numbers don't really matter much. I've set these two while watching the meters to see if I'm getting maybe 3 dB of gain reduction on the kick and snare hits, okay? Take a look at this meter and watch what happens on the kick and the snare hits. So it's mostly on the snare, and sometimes when he really hits the kick drum, you see it light up on the 3 dB meter. This might be doing 1 or 2 dB of gain reduction on the other hits, but you can't tell on this meter. All you see is when it lights up 3 or 6 and beyond. And so what I'm looking for is this compressor to just kiss the drums a bit, because I'm not going to do heavy compression here because I don't want to screw up the cymbals. But a little bit of compression here tucks in the snare and tucks in the kick drum just a smidge, that then you can do some makeup gain so that the rest of the hits come up a little bit closer to the kick and the snare, so you have more presence all around. Now this channel strip does auto makeup gain. So the moment I start compressing, it starts turning up everything, and it actually turned up the drum track more when it was running through the compressor, and I didn't have an even match, so I took the output down 1.7 dB to try to get a volume match, a gain match with the drums before this channel strip and after. I don't want to increase the volume. That's not what I'm trying to do right here. I'm trying to change the tone, okay? So just a little bit of light compression kissing the kick and snare hits, a little roll off at 20 hertz, a major cut at 500 hertz, and a little bit of a shelf at 8K. Those 4 moves, 3 EQ moves and 1 compression move, take my drums from this to that. Tighter kick drum, brighter cymbals, more crack on the snare, Again, you can use any channel strip or any EQ and compression plugin in tandem in any DAW. Do it on your drum bus, do it on your drum loop, whatever it takes. And these little moves go a long way to help you get a better drum sound and a better mix. Hope that helps, guys. Again, Graham here from TheRecordingRevolution.com. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you on another video soon.